Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. It's all about the GS today. For over 25 years, the GS has been the premier sports sedan for Toyota's luxury arm Lexus. And I've known for a while now, at least I've had a feeling for a while now, that the GS is probably going to be canceled. I've probably known that for 2 years, that the GS is not going to make it. In case it does not make it, guys, I want to bring this video to you where we look back on the 4 generations and the history of the GS, all the motors it had, and if this happens to be the last year of production for the GS, then we have to give it a good sending off. Smash the like button for the GS, guys. That's all I can say. Smash the like button for the GS. So let's jump into the history of the GS, starting way back in 1993. Grab your handkerchiefs, guys. This one's going to be a tearjerker. The first ever Lexus GS actually came out in 1991. It was not a Lexus, it was actually a Toyota Aristo. And we never saw this car in America, but it was in many markets such as obviously Japan and Australia. But the Lexus badge model did not hit the States until 1993. And when it arrived, it had an inline-6 engine. It was the 2JZ that is legendary throughout the automotive industry. Actually in Japan, they got the turbocharged variant that we saw in the Supra here in the States. That model variant never came stateside. And of course, this amazing vehicle was built in Toyota's Tahara assembly plant in the heart of Japan. Robots performed 4,200 welds on each body, while only just 8 spot welds were performed by hand. The standard inline-6, the 2JZ GE, produced 227 horsepower, while the twin turbo variant, like I said, the 2JZ GTE that we saw in the Supra here in America, received 275 horsepower. And actually in 1992, it had the V8, the 1UZ FE that I've seen in the LS400, producing 249 horsepower. However, we did not see this in the States. The GS300 debuted with a $35,000 base price. And by 1997, the price of the GS had risen to $46,000. And that was the last year of the first generation GS. It was just a short run from 93 to 97. The second generation debuted in 97 as a 98 model. And this generation lasted all the way to 2005. So an 8-year span for this particular model was the longest in the lineup. The 2JZ GE carried over, and now it had VVTi, which boosted horsepower to 225 and torque to 225. And the V8 finally came to America with the GS400 with the 1UZ FE found in the LS400. Produced 300 horsepower and 310 pound-feet of torque. The models here in the States had a 5-speed automatic transmission. And the GS400 actually had steering wheel shift buttons. I guess an old school relic of a modern day paddle shifters. And the GS400 was actually claimed to be the world's fastest production sedan in the introduction of the model in 1997. This generation of GS actually won Motor Trend's Import Car of the Year in 1998. For the 2001 model year, Lexus did give the second generation GS a facelift, fancy revised grille, upgraded headlamps, and even the GS300 got the wheel shift buttons like the paddle shifters. And they also got rid of the GS400, but they replaced it with the GS430, the 3UZ FE motor found in the LS430 and the SC430 convertible, which gave the sedan an extra 25 or so horsepower, and it can now do 0 to 60 in just 5.7 seconds. The third generation was a 6-year span or so from 2005 to 2011, and unlike the previous generations of the GS, it actually didn't have an Aristo counterpart, because in 2005 Lexus had finally debuted in Japan. So the would-be Aristo was debuted in Japan as a Lexus GS. Now these are very, very easy to pick out on the streets if you guys see them. They have a very sloping rear roof line that is kind of like a fastback. And I've talked to a lot of my friends who don't like the design of this, but I still think this design of the GS, the third generation, has held up quite well. I personally like the second generation maybe the best, but let's get back on topic for this third generation. Now with this third generation, the GS300 was gone, and now they had the GS350, which still lives on until 2020. First GS350 used a 3.5 liter 2GR FSE motor with D4S direct injection, and this generation came out with something crazy. We've seen the V8s, we saw the inline 6s, the V6s at this point. Now we have a hybrid. The GS450H joined the lineup as a 2007 model year. And it was the first mass-produced rear-wheel drive luxury hybrid car. It had the 3.5-liter 2GR motor in it. Made it to an electric motor with a CVT transmission. Total output was 339 horsepower, and it went 0 to 60 in just 5.2 seconds, which is faster than any previous V8 model that hit the market. So some crazy new technology came out with this third generation. We saw electric power steering. The V8 and the hybrids had variable gear ratio steering, which we still see in today's Lexus cars. Had electronically controlled brake systems, and we saw the first early iterations of what I would call the adaptive variable suspension that alters suspension damper firmness. They even offered pre-collision systems and autonomous cruise control that was based off of radar. And for the 2008 model year, the GS 430 was gone, and they replaced it with the GS 460, which was the 1UR FSE motor. It was very similar to the 4.6 liter we saw in the LS 460. And it came with an 8-speed automatic transmission, and together it had 342 horsepower and almost 340 pound-feet of torque. 0 to 60 time was a little bit slower actually than the hybrid at 5.4 seconds. However, it had a way better top end power and therefore higher top speed. The fourth generation of the GS actually wasn't really planned. From what I've heard, the third generation GS was going to be the last. It just wasn't selling that well for Lexus. In April 2011, Lexus had a special concept called the LFGH. It stood for Lexus Future Grand Touring Hybrid. And this actually had a lot of the cues of the fourth generation GS. Big spindle grille, similar lights, similar body lines as well. The fourth generation made its world debut at the Pebble Beach Concours d'Elegance in California in August of 2011. Akio Toyoda had just been promoted to CEO around this time, and the new GS was supposed to be the centerpiece of passion and where Lexus is taking the brand to compete with the traditional powerhouses, the Germans, in the sports sedan segment. And rumor was Toyota was not keen on the styling of the new GS. He let it go anyways. Carrying over for the American market was a 3.5-liter 2GR FSE motor that we had seen in the previous generation. And of course the hybrid variant, the high performance hybrid, which again was the fastest GS in production at the time. And while F-Sport models came out with this with really nice wheels, cool grills, and sportier interiors, the GS never really did sell well in this fourth generation. And yes, there were improvements, for example in the hybrid, where it got a little bit more horsepower. They used the Atkinson cycle, which gave them a huge fuel economy improvement, and it went from 23 miles per gallon to 31 miles per gallon. That's pretty darn impressive. And it got an extra 32 horsepower. But the problem is the GS 450H was really expensive and extraordinarily rare. You would almost have to custom order one. I personally have never seen a fourth generation GS 450H. I've seen a third generation GS 450H, maybe one, two at the most. I can only remember one though. So they are absolute unicorns out there. And in 2014, they went from a 6-speed to an 8-speed automatic transmission for the rear wheel drive, which included rear wheel steering in the F-Sport package. And in 2015, they did have a refresh. I guess it was a 2016 model year, where they added all the features from Lexus Safety System Plus, revised headlights, revised taillights, different wheels, which I'm not a big fan of the newest F-Sport wheels compared to the 2015 models. Of course, now you could get the beautiful triple beam headlights, which are now looking dated at this point in 2020. But what happened in 2015 is what the GS should have had at the start of this fourth generation, and that is the GSF. I feel like the GSF was perfect car, just a little like 4 years too late. If it would have came out right when the fourth generation started back in 2011, 2012, I think the fate of the GS may have been a little bit different. And the GSF is phenomenal. It has the huge 5-liter V8 that it shares with the LC500. It has 467 horsepower, super high rev line of 7,200 RPM. Is one of the best sounding motors out there. It's got cool, huge 19-inch wheels with orange calipers. In 2020, they added blue calipers and like a white interior and matte black wheels, but really they didn't do a whole lot to the GSF from 2016 to the 2020 model. They revised the suspension, I believe, for the 2017 model, but for the most part the 2016 through 2020 GSFs were unchanged. And the GSF is the swan song for the GS. the GS went out with a bang, and the GSF is probably lusted over by just about any single Lexus performance enthusiast. I think the looks are spot on, the performance, the V8, interior, the vehicle is absolutely perfect. But with a price of close to 90 grand, brand new, the GSF, just too late, too high priced. But man, I am sure so happy that the GSF came and ended the GS lineup with a bang, with a perfect car. I would change nothing about the GSF. I love the looks. I love the power plant. I could go on and on, guys. The GSF is truly something special. And one day, guys, I hope to drive one. I've driven the RCF. I've driven the LC. I've been in an ISF, but the GSF keeps escaping me. But one day, guys, one day I'll bring it to the channel and show you true Japanese perfection. The history of the GS, well, it's been long, and it did bring so much excitement to the brand and technology. The GSF was pretty much a perfectly executed vehicle, extremely polished. Fit and finish is second to none. Performance is, I mean, it's not like the fastest thing in the world, but it's something that would be perfect for a daily commute. And you could open it up whenever you want to listen to that V8. Oh, it's such a pure, beautiful vehicle. In the days of dying V8s, if you have the money and you love Lexus, there's no reason you shouldn't have a GSF in your stable. But due to non-existent sales and a lack of desire, I guess, from Lexus to come out with a very, very compelling mid-sized sports sedan, it's just kind of gone by the wayside. And a part of that is Lexus is just like, well, the ES is our baby. The ES sells so well. What can we do to the ES to fill the shoes of a potential GS? Well, they're going to give it all-wheel drive. We just don't know exactly when at this point. I heard it could be this year, next year, but definitely within the next 2 years, we're going to get an all-wheel drive ES. Now, is it going to be like a high-performance rear-wheel drive variant of this? I don't know. The rumors are that they're testing an electrified version with a fat electric motor in the back of an ES, so it would be similar to the GS 450H's performance and acceleration, maybe even faster. But that's all just rumor at this point, and we won't know until maybe later this year, early next year, for what Lexus has planned for the ES. But it is sad to see the GS go. I don't know how else to end this video. Smash the like button for the GS, guys. That's all I can say. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe for more Lexus and Toyota videos, and have a good one, guys. Peace.